The sun blazed high over the desert, spilling molten gold across the horizon. The air shimmered with heat, and yet the courtyards of the great temple stirred with restless life. Hundreds had gathered, nobles and priestesses draped in linen and shimmering gold, soldiers standing tall with bronze-tipped spears, and scribes clutching scrolls to record the day's events for eternity. Between the towering columns, their carvings alive with the stories of gods and kings, the procession began. The people hushed, for their queen was coming. From the shadows of the inner sanctum, she appeared. Neferura, queen of the two lands, descendant of the sun god himself, walked with the poise of one who carried both throne and eternity on her shoulders. Her gown, spun of golden threads, caught the light so that she seemed less a woman than a divine statue come to life. A jeweled cobra circlet crowned her brow, and the great lapis scarab rested over her chest. The crowd bowed low, yet all eyes followed her. Along the carpet of woven papyrus and lotus patterns, her steps echoed with authority. On either side of the path stood her attendants, women draped in white and gold, their kohl-lined eyes lowered in reverence. Some whispered prayers beneath their breath, as though her passing was the movement of the gods themselves. Beyond her, rising like a jagged tooth against the desert sky, stood the Great Pyramid. Its limestone face still caught the brilliance of the sun, though age had begun to wear its edges. It loomed as both marvel and warning, a monument not only to power, but to something older, something unsaid. As Neferura walked, she felt its shadow across her heart. At the head of the procession waited her advisors. High Priest Kamen, bent with years yet unbowed in spirit, leaned upon a staff carved with the eye of Ra. His eyes, dark and searching, flickered uneasily as he glanced from the queen to the pyramid. By his side stood Captain Menhotep, tall and broad, the gleam of H. The morning sun rose red, painting the horizon like a wound. The city of Wazid awoke in uneasy silence, as if the air itself carried the memory of the old priest's warning. Outside the palace, the people whispered, "The queen will enter the pyramid. She will awaken what sleeps inside." Inside the archives of the temple, Layla's trembling hands brushed the dust off a hidden scroll. The chamber was dim, lit by a single oil lamp, its smoke curling like black snakes toward the ceiling. She had begged permission from her master to study, but in truth, she sought what others dared not read. The scroll crackled as she unrolled it. Symbols, old as the desert, glared up at her in fading red ink. They spoke of a ruler whose name had been erased from history, the masked king. His true name, forbidden. His reign, struck from records. He had ruled not as a servant of the gods, but as their rival. Layla's lips moved silently as she traced the words. He demanded sacrifices of blood, not grain. He raised statues to himself, not to Ra or Osiris. He sought immortality not through legacy, but through dark binding. The scroll told of the rebellion. His own priests betrayed him, luring him into the pyramid he had built. There, sorcerers bound him in chains of gold etched with spells. His face was sealed with a mask, a grotesque visage of eternal hunger. His body was left alive, his soul trapped, his voice condemned to whisper only to the blood of his descendants. Layla froze at the final passage, "Only a daughter of his blood may set him free. Only her hand may shatter the mask, or release it." Her mind reeled. Could it be, the queen herself bore that blood? That afternoon, the court prepared to enter the pyramid. The nobles assembled, their jewels glittering nervously in the light. Priests carried incense burners, their smoke trailing into the hot air, and guards lined the procession with grim faces. The queen, radiant yet solemn, stood at the head, her cobra crown glinting like. The desert storm came without warning. By the time the queen and her entourage staggered from the pyramid, the horizon had vanished beneath a wall of sand. The sun, once blazing, was smothered into a blood-red disk. Winds howled across the plain, lashing robes and tearing banners from their poles. Behind them, from deep within the pyramid, came a sound that no storm could drown, a groan of stone upon stone, as though the earth itself shifted in pain. "Back!" Captain Menhotep roared, dragging Neferura toward the palace caravan. His men shielded her with their bodies as pebbles stung their faces. Yet even through the roar of the gale, they heard it, a voice. Deep, mocking, carried on the wind. You cannot shut me away again. That night, the storm swallowed villages. Palm groves bent and splintered beneath its fury, and boats moored upon the Nile broke their ropes and drifted aimlessly downstream. The people cried that the gods were angry. Yet in the palace, the whispers spread, this was no wrath of Ra or Set, but of something older. In the council chamber, nobles gathered in fearful argument. The torches shook in their sconces, shadows clawing along the carved walls. This is a curse, cried one. No, a sign of his favor. The masked king rises to grant us his power, argued another. Blasphemy. He was no god, only a tyrant, shouted Common, his eyes burning. The room erupted in shouts until Neferura stood, raising her hand. Silence fell instantly. We entered the pyramid. We disturbed what should have remained sealed. Now Egypt trembles. Her voice was calm, but her heart raced. She turned to Common. Tell us what you know. The old priest bowed, his voice grave. Majesty, the masked king was no ordinary ruler. He bound his life to sorcery, fed by blood sacrifices. When his priests rose against him, they could not kill him. His soul refused death. So they sealed him. The mask was forged by the high magicians of the first dynasty, it alone contains his es. The night sky was swallowed by storm. Black clouds churned over Wazit, and thunder rolled like the march of 1,000 drums. The city trembled, its walls bristling with archers, its gates reinforced with bronze. But outside, beyond the torches and battlements, an army gathered. They came in silence. Men and women who had once served the throne now bore the black banner of the masked king. Their eyes glowed faintly gold, their skin pale, their voices mute. Among them walked the dead, linen-wrapped mummies dragging rusted blades, skeletons clattering beneath scraps of armor. At their head towered a figure cloaked in shadow and gold, his mask gleaming in the stormlight, cruel, smiling, alive. Neferura, blood of mine, his voice thundered across the plain, carried on the wind. Come to me, and I will spare your people. Resist, and all shall be dust. On the battlements, Neferura stood, her cobra crown flashing as lightning split the sky. Her soldiers looked to her, fear plain in their eyes. She raised her voice, steady and clear. Egypt bows to no tyrant, not living, not dead. Tonight, we fight for the two lands. Tonight, we fight for eternity. A roar answered her, the army's spirits kindled. Menhotep lifted his khopesh high, shouting orders, while priests carried torches and chanted hymns to Ra. Drums thundered, horns blared, and the gates groaned open. The battle of eternal chains had begun. The clash was like thunder meeting thunder. Bronze clashed against bone, steel against shadow. Menhotep fought like a lion, cutting through lines of hollow-eyed soldiers, his blade flashing arcs of light. Priests hurled jars of sacred oil, igniting the dead in bursts of flame, while archers loosed volleys that blotted the sky. But the enemy did not falter. The living obeyed the masked king's will without fear, and the dead rose again even after being struck down. For every soldier slain, two more seemed to take their place. From the palace steps, Common raised his